The ancient and classical roots of skill, how early civilization shaped mastery. Have you ever wondered how people first learned skills long before schools and textbooks? Let's take a fascinating journey back to ancient times, where the very foundations of skill acquisition were being laid. Imagine ancient India, where knowledge wasn't scribbled on pages, but passed down through close, master-to-student oral traditions. Here, memorization and recitation weren't just classroom tasks. They were the lifeblood of learning disciplines like grammar and medicine. Take Panini's work on Sanskrit grammar. It's one of the earliest examples of how structured knowledge was preserved purely through repetition and masterful instruction in pre-literate societies. Now, picture ancient Greece, home to Plato and Aristotle, where skill wasn't just about memorizing, but about thinking deeply. These thinkers championed learning through reasoned dialogue, or dialectical questioning, making intellectual training an active conversation. Greek scholars believed that observation and written records were essential for sharpening the mind. Their approach set the stage for the formal education systems we recognize today, emphasizing methodical thinking and critical skills. This wasn't just abstract theory. It was about cultivating a sharp, analytical mind through practice and discussion. Shift your view to Confucian China, where skill took on a moral dimension. Learning meant self-discipline, imitation of wise sages, and perfecting rituals, often tested through rigorous state examinations. Here, education reinforced social order and internalized cultural values. Skills were not just technical, but woven into the fabric of everyday life, highlighting how mastery was about more than just knowing, it was about being. During the Islamic Golden Age, the story gets even richer. Scholars didn't just copy knowledge, they integrated insights from Greek, Indian, and Persian traditions, creating a melting pot of ideas. In madrasas, memorization of sacred texts paired with apprenticeships to ensure skills were deeply mastered. This blend of repetition, reflection, and cross-cultural synthesis mirrored and expanded upon classical models of learning, showing how skill acquisition evolves through connection. Finally, medieval Europe introduced the guild system. Imagine young apprentices shadowing masters for years, learning by watching, copying, and practicing until they could work independently. This method passed on tacit knowledge, those hard-to-explain skills you pick up by doing rather than reading. Guilds created tight-knit communities where learning was embedded in shared practices, rituals, and hands-on experience rather than just textbooks. So, from oral traditions in India to apprenticeships in Europe, ancient and classical civilizations all contributed unique threads to the tapestry of skill acquisition. Their methods highlight a timeless truth. Skill grows not just from information, but through practice, community, and culture. Stick around, because next we'll see how these early ideas evolved and what they mean for mastering skills today. How the early modern period revolutionized learning and skill acquisition. Did you know that the way we learn and develop skills today traces back to a huge shift during the early modern period between 1500 and 1800? This wasn't just a simple change, it was a complete makeover in how people thought about education, skill, and knowledge. Imagine a time when learning was mostly about memorizing facts by rote. Then, thinkers like Michel de Montaigne came along and flipped the script by arguing that real-world experience and personal reflection were the keys to becoming truly skilled and adaptable. Instead of just repeating facts, Montaigne believed that reflecting on life's messy, unpredictable moments made us better thinkers. This fresh idea laid the groundwork for moving away from mindless memorization to learning that actually makes sense for life. At the same time, René Descartes introduced a new way of breaking down knowledge into simple, clear parts. Think of it like dismantling a clock to understand how each gear works. This method helped turn education into a more organized, logical system where lessons were easier to follow because they were broken into bite-sized chunks. This was a big deal because it allowed schools to become more systematic and standardized, making learning less random and more reliable. Then there's John Amos Comenius, often called the father of modern education. He dreamed of a world where education wasn't just for the elite or religious leaders. What made Comenius stand out was his insistence that students learn through their senses, touching, seeing, experiencing real things, not just memorizing abstract ideas. This hands-on approach transformed how teaching materials were designed and made education more practical. John Locke took things even further with his idea of the mind as a blank slate shaped entirely by experience. He argued that skills and intelligence aren't inborn but built through interaction with the world. This idea pushed educators to focus on teaching methods that encourage reasoning and active discovery, learning by doing, not just by listening. But what really changed the game was the rise of the scientific method, championed by figures like Galileo and Bacon. Galileo's precise observations and experiments, along with Bacon's insistence on gathering data and testing ideas, brought a new level of rigor to how knowledge and skills were taught. Schools started to include experimentation and evidence-based learning, blending philosophy with real-world testing. So, this period didn't just tweak education, it revolutionized it. The blend of humanism, scientific inquiry, and sensory learning paved the way for how we develop skills today, through reflection, structured thinking, hands-on experience, and scientific experimentation. Stick around, because next we'll see how these ideas exploded into the modern schooling systems we know today, shaping how millions of people learn and grow. If you're enjoying this journey through the history of skill, hit that like button and subscribe. There's a lot more fascinating stuff coming your way. How 19th century thinkers revolutionized our understanding of learning and skill. Have you ever wondered how the way we learn skills today got its start? The 19th century was a game changer in shaping how education and skill development evolved, and it all began with some groundbreaking ideas from thinkers like Johann Friedrich Herbart, Friedrich Froebel, and Herbert Spencer. Herbart saw education as more than just sharing facts. He believed it was a precise, scientific process that could be broken down into clear steps, like preparation and application, to help shape not only the mind, but also moral character. Then there was Froebel, who changed the game by introducing kindergarten and showing us that play isn't just fun. It's actually a powerful way for kids to learn creativity, perception, and motor skills through hands-on activities he called gifts and occupations. And Spencer pushed education even further by arguing it should prepare us for complete living, meaning learning isn't just about books, but about real-world science and practical skills that evolve with society. This was all happening just as industrialization was demanding new kinds of skilled workers. Schools started teaching specific trades and technical skills to keep up with factory jobs, moving away from classical education to something more job-focused. Meanwhile, the birth of experimental psychology, thanks to pioneers like Wilhelm Wundt and William James, gave us tools to study learning scientifically for the first time, making educational psychology a real discipline. So, from moral lessons to play-based learning, from practical science to the rise of skilled labor, the 19th century laid the foundation for how we think about learning and skills even today. Stick around, because understanding this history might just change how you think about your own learning journey. Early 20th century learning theories, how we came to understand skill development. Have you ever wondered how we went from guessing how people learn to actually understanding the science behind it? The early 20th century was a game changer in the study of learning and skill development. Imagine a time when education was mostly about memorizing facts. Then, suddenly, a new wave of thinkers came along and asked, what really makes us learn? One of the pioneers was Edward Thorndike, often called the father of educational psychology. He discovered the law of effect, which basically says we're more likely to repeat behaviors that bring good results. Thorndike ran experiments with animals and humans, showing how learning isn't random, but follows clear patterns of stimulus and response. This was huge because it turned learning into something measurable and testable, paving the way for behaviorist approaches that focused on repetition and rewards. But Thorndike wasn't the only one shaking things up. John Dewey, a leading figure in progressive education, challenged the old-school idea that learning is just about memorizing facts. Instead, he believed that learning happens best through active experience and problem-solving, by actually engaging with the world. Think of school as a lab where students experiment and learn skills that really matter for life. Dewey's vision helped shift education toward developing critical thinking and adaptability, making learning more relevant and meaningful. Around the same time, Maria Montessori introduced a fresh perspective focused on children's natural growth. She emphasized self-directed, hands-on learning in carefully designed environments, letting kids explore and master skills at their own pace. Montessori's approach recognized that everyone learns differently, and practical skills were just as important as academic knowledge. This was a big step forward in connecting psychology with education. Meanwhile, behaviorism gained momentum thanks to John B. Watson and B.F. Skinner. Skinner's operant conditioning showed how we can build complex skills through reinforcement and shaping, step by step. This scientific method gave teachers and trainers powerful tools to design effective instruction based on repetition and immediate feedback. At the same time, the idea of measuring intelligence through testing was taking off, led by Alfred Binet and Louis Terman. Though controversial, intelligence tests began influencing how schools identified students' strengths and weaknesses, which shaped curriculum and teaching priorities. All these thinkers and ideas combined to create a foundation for how we understand skill development today, turning learning into a more scientific, intentional process that balances behavior, experience, development, and measurement. Stick around, because next we'll explore how these early ideas evolved into even more exciting theories that continue to shape education and training today. Rethinking skills for the 21st century, how to thrive in a changing world. Have you ever wondered why the skills you learned in school suddenly seem out of date? Or why employers today talk less about just knowing stuff and more about how you think, adapt, and connect? The truth is, the 21st century has flipped the script on what skills really mean. With rapid globalization and digital breakthroughs, the old rules, memorizing facts, mastering basic math, reading, and writing, no longer cut it. Instead, today's world demands something bigger, a mix of cognitive smarts, social savvy, and digital know-how that you can carry across jobs, cultures, and challenges. Let's take a quick journey. Remember the 3 R's? Reading, writing, and arithmetic used to be the foundation of education everywhere. But now, frameworks like OECD's DESICO and UNESCO's key competencies have shifted focus to what they call 21st century skills. Think critical thinking, problem solving, creativity, collaboration, digital literacy, and understanding cultures different from your own. These aren't just isolated talents, they're connected, flexible skills you'll need no matter where you go or what you do. Imagine having a Swiss Army knife of abilities that adapt to whatever comes next. But here's the twist. Skills aren't just something you get in school and then forget about. Lifelong learning is the new normal. Whether you're 20 or 60, your skill set needs to keep evolving as life throws new demands your way. And it's not just about formal classrooms. Life-wide learning reminds us that we build skills everywhere, at work, at home, online, and in our communities. Every experience shapes your toolbox. Now, digital tech has opened up whole new arenas. Beyond just knowing how to use a phone or app, today's essential skills include navigating cybersecurity, understanding media, and even basic coding. On top of that, there's a rising focus on meta skills, things like learning how to learn, resilience, and staying adaptable in the face of uncertainty. These are the superpowers for navigating complexity in our fast-paced world. But hold on, it's not all one size fits all. Scholars from the global south and critical thinkers remind us that much of the mainstream view on skills comes from Western ideas. They challenge us to recognize indigenous knowledge and local skills that often don't fit global benchmarks. Equity advocates push for education that respects cultural diversity and empowers communities rather than forcing a single correct way. So what does this mean for you? In today's world, skills aren't fixed checklists, but living, breathing capacities shaped by context, culture, and challenge. Education systems must help us become learners who can adapt, think ethically, and connect globally, not just workers with technical know-how. And hey, if this resonates with you, hit like and subscribe to dive deeper into master.
Why we need to rethink skill in the 21st century. Have you ever stopped to think about what it really means to be skilled today? Because the truth is, the idea of skill has changed a lot, and if we don't keep up, we're missing the bigger picture. Skill used to be all about manual work or vocational know-how, right? But now it's much more than that. It's about how we think, how we use digital tools, and even how we manage our emotions and social interactions. So skill isn't just a fixed thing you either have or don't have anymore. It's something dynamic, shaped by society around us. Why does that matter? Well, look at how our world has shifted. Industrialization and globalization rewrote the rules of work. Education moved from memorizing facts to fostering critical thinking and lifelong learning. And new theories challenge old ideas about what counts as valuable skill, especially when we consider culture and power. And let's not forget technology. Digital literacy and so-called meta skills like adaptability are now crucial. So here's the big idea. In the 21st century, we can't just think of skill as technical ability or a line on your resume. Instead, skill is a complex, context-driven capability that emerges through education, work, culture, and social interaction. This fresh way of thinking has huge implications. It means we need to redesign education systems and rethink how we create curricula and assess learning, not just to keep up, but to make sure these systems are fair, inclusive, and ready for the future. If you want to stay ahead in a world that's changing faster than ever, understanding this new meaning of skill isn't optional, it's essential. Stick around because next we'll dive into how you can apply this in your own learning and work. And if you found this insight valuable, don't forget to hit subscribe to keep exploring how we can all grow smarter together.